Hello and welcome to this Chauvin Arnoux webinar. Today we're going to take our first look at the new Qualistar CA 8345 Class A Power Quality Analyzer. My name's Kevin Smith, I'm Business Development and Marketing Manager here at Chauvin Arnoux in the UK, and I'm going to be a presenter during this webinar. If you'd like to connect with me after the session, I'm available to connect with on LinkedIn. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Chauvin Arnoux, I'll just give you a brief overview. So Chauvin Arnoux was founded in Paris in 1893 by Raphael Chauvin and René Arnoux. Chauvin Arnoux has played a major role in the history of test and measurement. We have a long and prestigious list of inventions, such as the universal tester, the ancestor of the multimeter, and the current clamp. In the 20th century, more than 350 patents and brands were registered by Chauvin Arnoux. And just to give you an idea of some of the numbers, we have 100 million euros of sales revenue each year. We have 10 subsidiaries worldwide, of which the UK subsidiary is one. Around 900 employees, 7 production sites, 6 R&D departments worldwide, and we invest around 11% of our revenue in research and development. So you can see we have a commitment to making exciting new products like the CA 8345. So I'd now like to formally welcome you to the webinar, and there's a few things that we'd like to go over before we get started. The first one is testing 1, 2, 3. Please make sure that you can hear us correctly and that you've got your volume adjusted accordingly. The webinar will last for approximately 1 hour. During the webinar, you can use the questions box to ask questions, and we have got staff on standby to answer those questions during the session. Remember to download the presentation handouts. If you have a look in the go-to toolbar, you'll see a handout section, and we have got a PDF copy of the presentation slides, which you can download during the session. After the final showing of the session, a certificate will be sent out to say that you've attended, so please keep an eye out for that in your emails. And finally, after the session, we will put a recording of the video up on our website, www.cauk.tv, and we'll also make that available on our YouTube channel as well. So with that said, let's get started. As I mentioned earlier, in this webinar we're going to take a first look at the Qualistar CA 8345 Class A Power Quality Analyzer. We're going to split the webinar up into 4 parts. So the first part's going to be a bit of an introduction to the 8345. Then we're going to look at the different modes of operation available. We'll have a look at the simple setup, operation and communication features, and then we'll finish up with a look at the accessories. So let's start off with an introduction to the Qualistar CA 8345 Class A Power Quality Analyzer from Chauvin Arnoux. The CA 8345 is the latest addition to the Qualistar range of power quality analyzers from Chauvin Arnoux. It builds on all the great things that people loved in the existing products. This is the first Class A certified product in the Qualistar range. The CA 8345 represents a step change in technology with touchscreen, improved data storage, and new communications features. So why are we really excited about the CA 8345? Well, there's lots of reasons, and here's the main ones that I'm going to talk you through now. So the first thing is that it's Cat 4 rated, so it is Cat 4 1000 volt rated. Which really gives you that surety when you're connecting it up, particularly at the origin of installations or on larger, more industrial installations, that you have got that protection offered by the fact that it is Cat 4000 volt rated. Obviously, we mentioned there, and I'll talk about this a lot more later on in the webinar, that it is Class A rated. So that's quite important, and we'll talk about that a bit more, why it's important later on, but obviously that's one of the main headlines, is that this is now a certified Class A product. As part of the Class A certification, it's actually got an internal GPS clock, so that uses the timing signals from the global positioning satellites to actually give a timing signal, and that allows synchronization between devices. So it gives a very accurate timing level and very accurate synchronization. It's got a 7-inch color touchscreen, which is really nice, you know, really bright, really good resolution. It's easy to use. So for those of you who are very used to the existing Qualistar range, you'll be able to pick this up and use it straight away. It will feel very familiar. The user interface is very similar. Although it's got new features, the user interface feels very comfortable. It feels very similar to previous Qualistar products. Another thing that's good to know is that all of the Qualistar current sensors, so all of your CTs and your clamps, are also compatible with the new 8345. So a lot of times you might have invested a lot of money in your clamps, in your coils. Those can all be used with the new product. It's not like you've got to chuck them all away and start again. So I think that's a really great step, because I know a lot of people invest a lot of money in having that range of clamps and that range of sensors. So being able to use those with the new product is really, really great news. We've got mains signaling detection. So maybe for smart metering and things like that, we actually use the mains conductors and send signals down those. So again, now with the 8345, we've actually got the ability to sense and identify those signals, which is a useful feature. It's actually got fully isolated inputs. This is something quite common with the Scopix oscilloscopes, where we've actually got isolated inputs. On the older Qualistars, your inputs actually were sort of commoned up. So there was always a potential, if you've got, you know, something connected to one input, something connected to another, that you know, there's potential for stray voltages and things like that to get, particularly if you're using, you know, third-party clamps and BNC connectors and things like that. There was always a potential that you could get live parts, whereas now all of the inputs are fully isolated from each other. We've got Wi-Fi and Ethernet communications. So again, really great features there. We've really improved the connectivity, the communications within the tester. And all the data is actually on the SD card. So the SD card now stores all of the data. Previously on some models, you had parts of the data that was stored within the instrument, parts were on the card. Now you've got everything on the SD card, and the SD card is there, readily accessible on the front panel of the instrument. You haven't got to like take the battery out or anything like that to get at it now. It's there right on the front of the instrument. Now we've also got the ability to transfer data via a USB memory stick. So again, right on the front panel of the instrument, you've got a flap and you can put a USB memory stick in, and you can copy the data off your memory card onto that USB memory stick, and then obviously store that as a backup and transfer that to your PC or another device. We have the option with the PA32ER power supply. We'll talk about this in the accessories section later on. But actually, we've got the option with this power supply to power the Qualistar now off the circuit under test. So we don't have to have another 3-pin socket outlet where we can connect it up to available at the point of test. We can actually power the device off the circuits under test. So that's a really great feature, and like I say, we will talk more about that later on. We've actually got web server communications, so that could be via the IRD server, the relay server, or this new thing called VNC, which is screen mirroring. So we've actually got the ability to dial into the device and actually mirror the screen remotely, so we can drive the device remotely. So again, something we're going to talk about a little bit more later on. We have Skippy Instructions. So what that means is that we've actually got a command set that we can use to drive the device remotely. So if we wanted to build this as part of an automated test sequence or part of an automatic test rig, again, we could write those commands. We could write, say, a Python script or something like that to actually drive the tester. Again, quite a niche function, but it's there, and it's something that I'm sure some customers will be taking advantage of. The other great thing is that the data now is in Json format, which basically means it's open. You can see the data, you can interpret the data. So if you look at JSON data, you can actually see what's going on inside there. It's not some sort of weird encrypted type format. And that does make, again, integration with third-party systems very simple. When you look at the device as well, it's actually relatively small and thin still. So if you did want to mount it inside a panel or inside the door of a switching panel or something like that, again, it's not massive. It's relatively slimline, so you've got those options for doing it. So although we've added all these features, you'll see that the product itself hasn't actually got any bigger. There is a magnetized hook available. The product itself isn't magnetized on the rear. It's a little bit heavy for that, but we have actually got a magnetized hook that comes with the product that you can use to hook onto the door, and again, we'll show you that a bit later on. This product is actually IP54 rated, which is just a little step up. I think the older Qualistars were IP53, so this is now IP54, so it does give you that extra little bit of protection. And like all the other Qualistars, we've actually got a 3-year warranty on this product as well. So that just gives you a very quick rundown of some of the new features and some of the things we're very excited about with this new product, the 8345. So just having a quick look at the layout of it. I'm not going to spend ages going over this, but just having a look at the layout. For those who are familiar with the Qualistars, this won't look particularly unusual to you from that side of things. So we've got the large 7-inch touchscreen, and obviously you can use that to drive the menus, so the user interface is driven from the touchscreen, or you can use the rubber keys on the front of the product, and they are very tactile. They are very, very sort of easy to use from that side of things. So we've got 8 of the yellow soft keys, the function keys that relate to the icons that come up on the screen. And then below that, we've got some buttons on there for things like settings, the camera, and help. Help's always a good one on there if you're not quite sure what's going on. You've got the help button right on the front of the tester. Then we've got the sort of the normal sort of directional keys, for want of a better term, up, down, left, right, the sort of cursor keys, and we've got an enter and a back key as well on there, which allows you to drive most of the user menus and select values within that. And then again, for those of you who are familiar with the Qualistar, you won't be surprised that we've got the normal blue mode keys there with the same icons that have been used on previous Qualistars, and we'll talk a bit more about all of those later on. Now, if you do look on the side of the device, there's a couple of things worth noting on there. So you'll see that we've actually got the Ethernet connection, so you can put a network cable into the side of the device, and also a USB Type B connection, so you can connect to the PC. We've got our special 4-pin mains connector that goes in the side there, and we'll talk a bit later on about the different mains adapters available. And at the top, we've actually got a Kingston lock port as well. So if you wanted to actually lock this device to a particular hard point to stop people taking it or moving it away, you can just use a standard Kingston, like a laptop type lock or a PC type lock that goes in there, and that would actually secure the device in a particular position. Now, if we just go on to look at the screen, again, there's going to be nothing on here that's particularly new to anybody who's a current Qualistar user, but you can see they pack a lot into this colour screen, and the extra size of the screen and the resolution is well used really from that side of things. I think if you actually look at particularly some of the traces, some of the intra harmonics and things, you will see the extra resolution really does come out in this TFT screen. So you'll notice along the bottom we've got the soft keys, so we've got the icons that line up for the soft keys. And then the up and down arrows are generally used for what's called a filter. So the filter allows us to select, are we looking at a single phase? Are we looking at neutral? Are we looking at voltage? We're looking at amps, those sort of things. We can control those with the up and down keys. Generally, the cursor's driven with the left and right keys. And then we'll have a number of values available on the screen. Always at the top, we'll have some icons on the top right. Those things like the battery condition, the network condition, and synchronization as well for the timing. We've got the date and time, frequency, and then we have a few other things like the home button, which again you can touch and that will take you back to the home screen. And it also tells you what mode you're in, the help buttons available on there, and if you've taken any screenshots as well. So I think it's all pretty self-explanatory, and once you've had a look at this, but the main takeaway from this is really the size of the touch screen and the resolution really improves that user experience. So here we're going to talk in a little bit more detail about this whole Class A thing. We've talked about the fact that this is a Class A power quality analyzer. So what does that really mean? So we start off with this standard IEC 62586. So this is really the sort of product standard for a power quality analyzer. So this really defines the sort of measurements, the functions of a power quality analyzer. And when we build a power quality analyzer, we build it to this standard. And if we've built it to this standard, that generally then implies that it will actually meet IEC 61000. So IEC 61000 430 is really the standard. When we're talking about Class A, that is the standard that generally we're talking about. So if we've built it to IEC 62586, generally it will comply with 61000 430. So we start off at that point. That then takes us on to, as we said, IEC 61000 430, and that IEC 61000 430 generally covers the testing and measurement techniques. So what that's doing is that's actually defining how we measure certain parameters. Now you may think that it's straightforward, but when you're talking about some of these very complex waveforms and very complex properties that we're measuring, how we measure them needs to be very specifically designed. Now the previous Qualistar products and the other Qualistar products in the range are Class B. And what Class B means is that effectively we can measure those parameters, but we measure them in a way that's specified by us, by the manufacturer, and we have to declare that. And if you have a look in the manuals, you'll see in the manuals all of the calculations of how these things are worked out is declared within the manual. So from a Class B point of view, we measure all of these parameters, and then we say how we've measured them. How have we done the averaging? How have we done the sampling? How have we done things like rounding? How have we rounded something up or rounded it down? All of that makes a difference to the measurements. Now, when you get onto Class A, basically, all of this stuff is predefined. It's told exactly how it must work. And what that means is we can take one Class A product and the measurements taken with one Class A product, and we can compare that directly with another product, even if it's by a different manufacturer, different type of product. We can compare those parameters because they are done in exactly the same way. And this is then externally verified as well. Now, with this product, the A345, we didn't just stop with 61000 430, which is the testing and measurement techniques. We also did 4.7, which is harmonics and interharmonics, and 4.15, which is flicker. So when we've actually looked at getting all of this, standardization within the product for Class A, we've actually not just done it for the testing and measurement techniques, but we've also done it for harmonics and interharmonics and flicker as well under those parts. Now you might say, well, what does that mean? So if I've got a product now that complies with IEC 61000, that then means that I can actually take that then and start to do something useful with it. So by having a product that complies with that, I can then do things like an EN 50160 assessment. So I can look at the voltage supplied by a distribution network, and I can establish whether that's within the parameters of EN 5160. So that's an important thing. That's an actual outcome. That's something that's useful to a customer that we want done. And exactly the same with actually an assessment of power quality under IEC 62749. Again, because I know that my tester complies with the standards, my power quality analyzer complies with these standards, 61,000, I know that then I'm able to do these other tests that are useful. So the important bit is actually the fact that we're certified, that bit is certified now to Class A. So these have been externally tested. We send the products off to a lab, they test it and they certify, yes, you meet the Class A standard. So we then know that if we're doing any of these other types of assessments, that it complies, because we know that the instrument, the measurement techniques used within the instrument for those properties comply with Class A, and that's been externally certified. So that's the difference. Class B is actually certified, sort of self-certified and specified in a set way. But, you know, in most cases, that's perfectly adequate. In most cases, you know, that's perfectly adequate. However, if you want that extra level of, you know, sort of accuracy, that extra level of standardization, that you know exactly what you're comparing, you know, apples and apples, this is why we go for the Class A measurement. And that's why having that stamp of Class A approval on this product is really, really important to us. And that's why a lot of customers now are looking for Class A products. Moving on now to have a look at something that's important to quite a few customers is the sampling rates, and understanding, you know, what level of sampling is actually now possible with the 8345. Now, I'm not going to go through all these in great detail, because there's a few slides in here, and I have included these because obviously you can download the handouts, and these might be useful if you want to go back through this. They're also available in the user manual as well. But the main highlights on here really is that most of the parameters are actually sampled at 512 samples per cycle. So it's the SPC, that samples per cycle. So most of the parameters in here are sampled at 512 samples per cycle of the sine wave. You will see some stuff that's done at higher rates. So, for example, some of the surges and things like that are done at a lot higher rates. They can be done at 400 kilosamples per second, or 200 kilosamples per second for current. And you'll also see that some of the measurements are done at 40 kilosamples per second as well. So it does just depend very much what parameter we're talking about and the way that it's actually sampled. So I've just included these in here, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time actually reading these out bit by bit. One thing you can see there for the surges, or the shockwave as it's known, that's really high sample rate. So we've got 2 million samples per second going on there. So 2 million samples per second. So we can actually see events of around 500 nanoseconds. So that's really high sampling rates for those surge events, those really fast transient or surge events. Now in this section we're going to have a look at the different modes of operation available on the Qualistar CA 8345. So it's important to understand when you're looking at the CA 8345 and a lot of the other Qualistars as well, actually, is where some of the main benefits come from. And a lot of the main benefits that many of our customers find with these products is the fact that they actually have this real-time mode. So in real time, what this means is you can actually use the Qualistars as sort of power quality multimeter, for want of a better term. So you can actually see the waveforms in real time. You can see the harmonics in real time. You can see the power and the energy in real time. So you can actually, especially now with having the big 7-inch screen, you can really use this like an oscilloscope, like a power quality multimeter, to help you diagnose these things in real time and investigate in real time. Whereas with many products, particularly some of the competitor products, you need to actually log and then download and analyze all the results, which obviously you can do with this anyway. But a lot of products don't have the ability to actually give you this real-time view. So this is one of the real strengths of the Qualistar range. So the real-time modes available on the CA8345 is waveforms, harmonics, power, and energy. We've also got 5 recording modes. So these are modes where we actually do logging and we record these parameters over a period of time. So we've got trends, so that may be where we're monitoring the voltage, the current, the power factor, crest factor, all sorts of things that we can be logging over a period of time in trend mode. We've got transients, where we're looking for these very fast events, surges and spikes, very fast events happening. Inrush mode, so inrush is where we look at potentially the starting of a particular piece of equipment, and we can see how that behaves over a period of time when it first starts. We've got the ability to set alarms, so these alarms maybe if the voltage goes under a certain value, it will trigger that alarm, and we can actually now on the 8345 get it to email you if it triggers an alarm, which is a great feature. And then we've got monitoring, and monitoring really comes down to the IEC 5160 type surveys, and you can configure all that within the PAT3 software. So these are our 5 recording modes, and we're going to go through those now. So the first of our real-time modes is the waveform mode, and it pretty much does exactly what it says on the tin. This almost works a little bit like an oscilloscope, where you can actually see the live values, for example RMS values, displayed on the screen, and you can use your filter, the up and down keys, to actually decide, do you want to see single phase, do you want to see the currents, the voltages, do you want to see the values between phases, for example. And there's various features available on this. You can choose the actual the sampling time, so we can have 200 milliseconds or a second, depending on how you set it up. There's a cursor, so you can actually move the cursor forwards and backwards to display specific values on that page. It indicates the correct phase rotation, and we've also got the Fresnel diagram. We've also got the phasor diagram at the bottom there, which a lot of people like. Again, in real time, they can have a look and actually see what's going on with their balance. And we've also got the ability to zoom in as well. Now, if you do, when you're setting up this and you actually notice, you think, oh God, we've actually got one of our current clamps the wrong way round. There is actually a feature built into this now to be able to reverse the clamps without having to physically, go in and undo the clamp and move it, because maybe you've had to do a shutdown, you've connected it up, you notice you've made a bit of a boo-boo. There is actually a feature in the settings in here now, so you can actually just alter that directly on the tester, which I think is a great feature. So the waveform mode is really good for just looking at your RMS values. You can look at your THD, your crest factors, maximum and minimums. You can actually see it in tabulated format if you want to see the actual numbers. And there's also, as we said, the phasor diagram there as well you can start to see. And remember, you do have the function to screenshot from any of the screens on the tester. So if you do see something and you want to highlight it, you can obviously just press the camera button and that will screenshot that for you, and you'll be able to refer back to that later on. Next one is the harmonics mode, and again we said that the harmonics was now covered under the IEC 61000. So that's one of the things that we're really pleased about, is we've now got the harmonics covered under the IEC standard, and that the harmonics now go all the way up to the 63rd order. So we only used to go to the 50th order. Now we go all the way up to the 63rd order, and we also include, again, another great feature, interharmonics. So actually the frequencies in between your standard odd and even harmonics, we can actually go right into those as well, into the interharmonics as well. So it's, it's a really enhanced harmonics mode now on the 8345. So for those of you who are used to the Qualistars, the existing Qualistars, this really takes it up a notch compared to that. Within this, we've got the option to look at the mains signaling detection as well, so we can actually identify what's going on with the main signaling. And we have got the ability, as it says there, with amplitude zoom, to actually zoom in, and we can actually zoom in to look at some of the smaller harmonics on there that maybe don't show up quite as much when you're looking at it in comparison, particularly if you're looking at it in comparison to the fundamental. Sometimes they look quite small, but you can actually zoom in now on this screen and really, take advantage of that that big 7-inch screen and really dive in to look at these. So the Harmonics mode has been really sort of improved, and the ability now to go up to the 63rd harmonic is really important. Power mode, again, relatively straightforward, pretty much does what it says on the tin. It gives you all of the different power values that you're going to want in there, power factor and all those sort of things. So they've used IEEE 1459, which is actually the standard definitions. So when you see all the different definitions in here, all of those are standardized with the IEEE document. So that's why we've got all of these various parameters in there. All of that's been standardized. So again, you can see that, and you can use the soft keys to go between the power and the power factor screens. And you can see examples that I've given you there. But you can also use the filter as well to go up and down and highlight certain values. So if you want to look at the 3 phases or the phases separately, you can do all of that within the power mode. Now the next bit is the energy mode. So obviously power is a real-time value. So that's telling you what the power is there and then. Energy is power times time. So this is more what your meter would measure, and this is more your kilowatt hours, for example. So we've got loads of different energy functions within the energy mode. You can also choose your unit. So it's not just watt hours or kilowatt hours. You can look at things like joules and stuff like that as well. So depending on what energy unit you want it to work on, you can select that in the settings. We've got the options in here to pick what currency you want to work in, and you can even put tariff values and things like that in there. So you can set up a currency, you can set up certain tariffs for different times of day or night and things like that, and you can actually then start it going and log for a period of time how much energy's actually been used, but also you can equate that directly to local currency as well. So you could see in pounds or euros or dollars exactly what these things are costing you, so you can get really efficient and really accurate values. There's also an option there with the soft keys to look at what you're using versus what you're exporting as well. So you can look at energy coming in and energy going out. So if you've got micro generation like PV or CHP or something like that, again, you can see the difference going on in there. So with the price of energy getting higher and higher and higher, this energy mode is really becoming a very useful part of the device that a lot of people are interested in. Now moving into the recording modes now, so we're actually getting into off the real-time stuff and into the recording, and probably the most popular and most used one of these will be trend mode. And trend mode is where we could record the voltage over a period of time, the current over a period of time, and those sort of things. In fact, we've actually got 49 different recordable parameters that we can select. So there's a lot of parameters in there that you can actually choose to set up or not. We can set the acquisition steps up from anywhere between 200 milliseconds, so that's like 5 times a second, all the way up to every 2 hours. So you can specify what acquisition steps you want, and then also the actual parameters that we want to use. There's 4 standard setups in the memory, so you can go into the memory and you can actually set up, there's 4 separate setups in there to say, right, there might be one you're just doing some basic current logging. All you want to know is the current. So you set it up and just say, look, I just want to know the current. You may be another setting where it's like, right, I want to record everything. Some you may want harmonics, you might not want harmonics. So you've got all of these 49 values that you can choose from, and you can set up accordingly what you want to log during that trend. And obviously once you've logged it, you can go in and look at it, and as it says there, you can zoom in and you can actually look and see what is going on in those trends as well on the screen of the instrument. So really powerful, really interesting data that you can actually get out of this. But generally this would be, you put it on, you log for a week, and then you either download the data or you go in and look at the data afterwards. But this is really where a lot of people will be using their power quality analyzers. Now, transient mode. Transient mode is where we start looking at a lot faster events. We start looking at events that are, a lot quicker. and this is where we get our higher sampling rates to be able to actually measure these transients. So although trend mode is actually recording permanently, things like transient mode are just sat there waiting for these events. So they're monitoring the installation, and then what they do is when they see an event, they see a quick change in a parameter that they're monitoring, they will then record that and store that, and they'll store so many cycles before it, so many cycles after it, and actually record that event, and then you can have a look and see what's gone on at that point. So transient mode, really, really useful mode in there for capturing these sort of surges, spikes, really high frequency events. So when we get into surges, actually, and we get into these sort of shock waves and things like that it's talking about, this is where we actually start getting into, you know, these really fast sampling times. Like I said, 2 million samples per second, you know, we're really getting into these tight events on there. So that's all contained within transient mode. Inrush mode. So if we're having a look at a piece of equipment, usually under startup, so normally when we turn a piece of equipment on, we can do an inrush test, and on the inrush test it will actually go through. Again, it sort of sits there waiting for us to do the inrush. We do the inrush and it records the event, and you can actually see on there over time the sort of piece of equipment stabilizing and getting to a sort of steady state. So really good if you're specifying protection devices or starters and things like that for, you know, things like motors and other types of equipment. Really useful in those sort of events. So that's inrush mode. Alarms mode. So we said we've got about 40 different alarms that we can set, 53 different parameters that we can actually check, and we can actually save 20,000 different alarms. And we can have these set to the duration down to a half cycle, or maybe 200 milliseconds or a second, or various different parameters that we actually set in there. So an alarm is quite straightforward. It's you pick a parameter, so it might be the RMS voltage. If it goes either under or over, and you can set that, does it go under a certain voltage, over a certain voltage for a period of time, then it will set you an alarm. So you can set all of your alarm parameters up. And actually, if you've got your email address and you've got this connected to the internet and you've got your email address set up in there, it will email you. If you want to, you can tick the box that says, yes, email me when these things happen, and it will actually send you an email to let you know that that's happened. So if the mains has failed, or you've had a particular incident's happened again that you've been looking for, it will send you an email and let you know that that's happened. So alarms mode, again, really, really powerful and really useful in many cases for fault finding, those sort of hard to get faults that never happen when you stood there. And the last one we're going to talk about now is monitoring mode. So monitoring mode, although it's included as a mode on the tester, it actually generally works with our PAT3 software. So it's all configured through the PAT3 software, and we set it up in there. But monitoring mode is generally designed for the EN 5160 measurement campaigns. So if we're actually going to do an EN 5160 survey, then that would be what we do during this monitoring mode, and that would be pre-configured using the PAT3 software, and we set up all the parameters, and all of that's basically set up in there and ready to go. So the monitoring mode includes some transients, some trends, some alarms, but all really built around the EN 5160 standard. Now let's take a closer look at the simple setup, operation and communication features of the Qualistar CA 8345. So I just want to start off by showing you the settings menu. There is on the front of the tester a settings button. That takes you to the settings menu, and the settings menu is broken down into 2 pages. So this is the first page, and you can see that by the tab in the bottom left hand corner. And this is what they call the measurement settings. So everything on this page is to do with actually the way that the tester measures. So you can see we can configure trend mode, transient mode, inrush mode, alarms mode, energy mode. All of those things can be configured from within this setup menu. We've also got things like the distribution system, which is very important. So if we're working on, say, 3-phase 4-wire system, we need to go in there and make sure we pick 3-phase 4-wire system. We can set up the various sensors and ratios. Now, it is important to note that the CA8345, generally, if you plug the CTs, you plug the clamps into it, it will identify what's connected to it. But if you are using it with other devices, or using it with voltage transformers, for example, you will need to go into sensors and ratios and set up the ranges and set up the ratios within that. Calculation methods, again, is just, there's a few different settings options that live within there that affect the different ways it does measurements and the way it displays certain values with measurements as well. So there's a bit more stuff going on in there. So that's page 1 of the settings. If we go on to page 2, this is really to do with setting up the instrument. So we can choose our language. We've got the date and time options, and we'll talk a little bit more about the date and time synchronization in a moment. We've got options for the display, so we can choose things like the contrast, and we can also set up the different colors that we use for denoting, say, L1, L2, L3. We've got our memory options in there. The network options, that's where we configure things like the Wi-Fi, the network access IP address, the IRD server, all of those sort of things live within network. We've got the ability to carry out a software or firmware update on the tester. That's normally by putting that onto the memory stick, and then we put the memory stick in and we can do an update. And we've got the about screen, which gives us a little bit of details about this particular device. Now, you'll notice one last thing just to mention. If you look sort of towards the top right of the screen there, you'll see the user. We've got user 1. And if you look to the bottom, the very right hand of the soft keys, you'll notice we've got a user icon on there. So we can actually configure different user profiles. So we can actually set up a user profile for me, Kevin, on there, and I can actually tweak a lot of the settings to how I want them. So I might have a particular job within the company, and I want my tester to carry out things in a certain way. I may have a colleague who's got a slightly different role. They want it configured slightly differently. So we can have different user profiles, and we can use that soft key on there to select which user we're actually talking about when we're doing all the settings and configuring the tester. Now, we said we'd talk a little bit more about the date and time features on here. So one of the requirements of Class A is the fact that we do actually have synchronization. And Class A is very tight on synchronization and the amount of drift and that sort of thing within the timing. Because if we have got several instruments, we want them all to be synchronized together so that if we see an event, particularly some of the very fast events, we want to be able to know that they're all looking at the same event. So synchronization is really important with Class A. And there's 2 modes of synchronization that's available within the 8345. Although there is actually 3. You can do a manual configuration as well. So you can set the time manually if you wanted to. But obviously that doesn't offer a huge, a huge level of sort of standardization with other devices. So normally if we're going to do synchronization, we would do this via GPS. So we've got the global positioning satellites or global positioning system. They're all up there floating around, and each one of the global positioning satellites sends out a timing signal. That's how GPS works. All these different satellites are in known locations. They all send out known timing signals, and by working out the difference in timing, you can work out where you are in the world. So GPS actually gives a very, very accurate timing signal. So the great thing with the 8345 is that it uses GPS to actually synchronize, and that's built in. Some competitors actually have GPS synchronization, but you need a separate box, or you need a separate, lead, antenna, those sort of things out there, whereas this is all just built into the device. So we've got the option for GPS synchronization. We've also got the option for this, what they call NTP, which is Network Time Protocol. So the likes of Google have got a standard network clock that's available on their website, time.google.com. There's other ones available. You've only got to do a quick search on NTP, on the internet, and you'll see all of these various different timing services that are available. And from that, then you can, set that, and via the internet, your device will synchronize to these timing signals, and that's just another way of achieving time synchronization. So it is important for Class A measurement that the device is synchronized, and we've got various ways of doing it within this product as well automatically, so you don't need anything else to do that. Now, communications wise, we've got a lot of new communications features within this device. So the first one is obviously Ethernet. We've got an RJ45 plug on the side of the device, and we can connect that in. We can use it on DHCP, so basically our router can tell the device what IP address it's going to be, or we can set a static IP in there. With Wi-Fi, we can either do direct connection via Wi-Fi, or we can use via the relay server. So we can actually use it via the IRD server, the relay server. We've also got the ability to email. So if we're connected to the internet, as we said with the alarms, when the alarms are triggered, we can send out emails via the network. And as I mentioned, we have got this option for the IRD or Internet Relay Device server. And this IRD protocol allows two devices to communicate on an authorized output address. So realistically, what this means with the IRD server is that effectively the CA8345 talks to our relay server. Your software will talk to our relay server, and then the two things tie up together in the cloud. So what that means is that you don't need a static IP address on your Ethernet or on your Wi-Fi to be able to dial into the device. So the IRD server is really useful if you're trying to access the device remotely. Now you will notice in red, one thing we have noticed is that this isn't functional at the moment. It is coming soon, but it's not available at the time of launch. So just wait for the next firmware update, and hopefully that'll be dealt with on there. But I have confirmed that today. Actually confirmed that currently, as I'm speaking to you, that function isn't active on the device. So just be aware of that is a limitation. But they've assured me that is coming soon and will be with us very soon. So just be aware the IRD server is not functional at the moment. But other than that, we have got various other communication options, as you can see on there. Now, USB communication options, starting off with USB Type B. So you'll note on the side of the device, we pointed out earlier that there was a Type B socket, so you can plug in a USB lead. That's used for connecting to the PC. To transfer data and actually to do the setup. So using the PAT3 software, we connect up via the USB, and that's a very quick, reliable way of doing that. And that's probably the way a lot of people will communicate with the device for data transfer and setup. We also now have the option for the memory stick. So on the front of the device, we can put a memory stick into the port on the front of the device, and we can use that to update the firmware, as we said before, or also we can copy stuff from the SD card. So again, it's a good way to back up in the field and get data off the device quickly, and also have a backup copy of that. So again, that's something new that we didn't have before, which is a really great feature. Now, within the memory, so we've actually got memory options within the settings on there, and we can have a play about with the memory, and we can actually see how much memory's been used up. So we've got user configuration in there, so we can actually sort of configure the files, where the files are, what the names of the files are, and stuff like that within the memory. We can use the USB key, so we can manage the USB key. We can manage the SD card within there. We can copy contents to the USB stick, and we can also eject the SD card by using that soft key on there, and actually eject the SD card, take the SD card out, and read data directly from that. Something that's really important to point out now is that the SD card is fully readable on a normal PC now. They're using a standard data format where before it may have caused problems to actually, read the SD card and copy data from it and things like that. Now it's using a standard format. We can just use the SD card, copy the data from it, and it just means it's a lot more usable, a lot less prone to errors than it was previously. Now, another thing which we're really excited about on here is this feature called VNC, Virtual Network Computing. And what this means is that we can actually mirror the screen from the tester, from the 8345, in any browser that we choose. So that could be on your Android device, it could be on your iOS device, it could be on your laptop, it could be remotely, it could be standing next to it. But as long as you are connected to the same network as the device and you know its IP address, literally just by putting the IP address into your browser, up pops the screen of the tester. And you're able to drive it, you're able to do all of the functions that you would do if you were standing in front of the tester. You can do all of those on your remote device. So it's a really, really powerful feature and works really well. And because it's iOS compatible and all these sort of things, it's a really, really great functionality there. And it's something that I think a lot of our users will really take to. So yeah, the VNC screen mirroring is a really, really powerful function. We've also got some open protocols now, and I always really applaud companies when they do this. A lot of times there's a temptation to encrypt everything, to lock all the data away, to make people pay for using the data, to stop you being able to communicate with the instrument unless you pay and all that sort of stuff. Whereas actually we've gone the opposite way with this. So we've got open protocols. So we've actually got a file format. So a file in Json format is associated with each binary file on the SD card. So we've actually got JSON. So for JSON, for people who don't know, is a sort of, it stands for JavaScript Object Notation. There you go. But it actually is an open format. So it's a data format where you can actually understand and look at the data and it means something. So if you are going to connect that up to a third-party piece of software, if you are going to convert it, if you are going to, write your own software or whatever, JSON is a very open protocol that you can use to actually get the data out. Similarly, we've got Scpi, which is standard commands for programming instruments. And what that means is that we've actually got the ability to send these Skippy commands to the device itself. So we could write a program, a Python script maybe, to actually drive the device. So if we wanted to build this into a test rig and we wanted to make a test program, test protocol, we could actually build this into a test rig and run a series of tests, send commands to it, get data back from it, and actually interrogate it in that way. And that's fully documented. You can have a look on the website. The list of commands is fully documented. And that's all shared and that's all available on the website. So again, as far as these open protocols, if you have got more advanced applications or third-party applications, it's all there ready for you to use. And the final section we're going to look at today is the accessories and software available for the Qualistar CA 8345. So the first thing, which is a big step up again with the product, is that we've got a lithium-ion battery. And generally this will last on its own for about 10 hours if fully charged. And it takes about 8 hours to charge the battery from scratch. So it does give us a long period of time where we can actually use the device without actually having to have it plugged into a supply. Now, as with most things when we're logging, we wouldn't say, you want to do a lot of logging on battery powered, but I did talk earlier about how powerful this Qualistar was as a fault finding tool, as a multimeter, as something you can take around, connect to the installation and do real-time measurements with. So having that level of battery life to be able to do that is really, really important. There is also, obviously, you can get replacement batteries and you can also get an external battery charger as well if you wanted to. So obviously you could add to that life by getting a second battery and just swap the batteries out. So yeah, great function that, and a really, really good reliable battery. Now there's a couple of charger or power supply options available. This is the sort of the standard one, the basic one. the PA40W. And this is the same one that you would see on the multifunction testers or the Scopics. Now, this is the sort of standard power supply, connects up, you connect it up to a 3-pin plug and charge or power the instrument from this. But that's pretty much what it does. It's very much like a laptop power supply. That's generally what it does. Now, in the UK, what we've chosen to do is the option that we're actually including with our products in the bundle, the part number that we're actually using in the UK. We've decided to include this power supply, which is the PA32ER. And the PA32ER offers a much wider range of functions. So the difference with the PA32ER is that this can actually be powered from the circuit you're testing. So some of you who will be familiar with our PELs, you'll know that we have a mains adapter, and that mains adapter allows you to power the PELs from the circuit you're testing. This does exactly the same for the CA8345. So what we can do with this is we can use, there's a little adapter there, you can just see the little graphic there of the adapter, and that allows us to adapt the device to work with a figure of 8 plug, so you can plug it into the mains just like you would with a normal 3-pin plug. Or if you remove the adapter, there's two 4mm banana sockets, and you can connect the 4mm banana sockets in, and you can power the device or charge the device from anything up to 1000 volts AC, and it is Cat 4 rated again. So same as the product's Cat 4 rated, this is Cat 4 rated. And you can even, if you're working on DC circuits, and I know this was there was a distributor of ours was having recent issues because they were working with DC cranes, and it was all DC, and they wanted to be able to power a device from DC. This device will even allow you to power it from DC as well, so it doesn't have to be AC. So quite a sizable box, but when you realise that it's 1000 volts Cat 4 rated, it'll work on AC or DC. It's actually got magnets built into it, so if you're connecting this up to a metal switch panel or something like that, you can clonk it onto the front of it and it will connect really well there. You can connect it between phase and neutral, or between phases. So if you want to connect this between phases, if you haven't got a neutral, it's a pure 3-phase supply, no neutral, again, you can connect this up, no problem at all. So I think this is a really good power adapter, and I say this is the sort of standard one that we've agreed in the UK that we're going to supply with the 8345s that we have. Obviously, other options are available if customers want them, but we thought this gives you the best of both worlds. You can connect it to a 3-pin plug, or you can connect it off the supply that you're testing. So just be aware of that, because I think some people will get it in the box and just go, oh, that's a big, power supply, and not realise the extra functionality that this gives. So I think that's a really great product. Another thing that customers have been we've had really good feedback on is this little hook. And actually, you look at it at first, see it in the bag, you think, what's that do? But this gives you the ability, as you can see in the diagrams there, of actually hanging the device by the circuits that you're going to test. So this will either magnet, so it's magnetic, so it'll either magnet to a door and you can connect it on that way around, or it's got the little hook and you can hook it over the top of a door, and that will then allow you to connect the device up. So because we weren't able to put magnets within the device to hold it up, actually this is the next best thing, and really actually it works really well. I've tried this on site recently, and yeah, it does work really well. So I think that's something we've had great feedback from customers on already. Now, obviously, when we're actually looking at power quality analyzers, and particularly when we're doing login and things like that, generally the software is really important too. So software that comes with this, we've got an all new software package called PAT3. So those of you may be familiar with PAT or PAT2 in previous generations. Now we've got PAT3, which is compatible with the 8345 and includes all of the new features. So PAT3 is a download off the website. It's there ready for you to download and have a look at if you want to. So have a look at that, and obviously that works with the DataView suite of software, and DataView allows you to do the reporting and obviously works hand in glove with PAT3 and the 8345. So all of the normal stuff that you've got, it allows the connectivity, it allows you to do your data downloads, it allows you to look at the real-time data and analyze the real-time data, and also we can configure and we can report on our EN 5160 surveys as well, all within the PAT3 and the DataView suite of software. So again, always important that you understand that this stuff goes hand in glove with, you know, if you're going to do some logging, you need good software to back you up. And the great thing is that if you've been used to using this software with maybe your Pels or your Qualistars in the past, it's all very familiar, and there'll be no surprises in there, and you'll know pretty much that it works anyway. So yeah, great software, great features. So yeah, you know, you've got that backup going along with the product. Okay, then just to finish up, we'll have a little summary of what we've covered during this webinar. So this webinar was really our first look at the Qualistar CA 8345 Class A Power Quality Analyzer. And as we do this webinar, this product's only been out probably about a month, so it's very new. And obviously things, you know, we're quite keen to show this off and really get this information out to you. So it's great to be able to have this opportunity today. So we started off with a look at the introduction to the CA8345, and we looked at some of the features that we're excited about, the new features on there, and we also looked a little bit at sort of the, you know, the construction of it, the design of it, and how the buttons are laid out, etc. We then went on to look at the modes of operation available, and we looked at the 4 real-time modes and the 5 recording modes, and we went into each one of those in detail. We then looked at the simple setup, operation and communication features of the 8345, and we finished up with a view of the available accessories. So hopefully that's given you a great first look and a great insight into the 8345, and from there, obviously then you can have a look at it in a bit more detail. And if you do want to get in touch with us and you would like a demo of the product, obviously please feel free to contact us. And we'd be more than happy to arrange a more detailed demonstration of the product for you. So we have got more webinars coming up in future. So always keep an eye out on our website. It's www.cauk.tv/webinars is our webinars page. And on there we'll have our new upcoming webinars, but we've also got a lot of webinars there on demand that you can watch that we've already done. So there's a lot of different topics on there: power quality, earth resistance testing, low resistance ohm meters, all sorts of stuff on there, all sorts of good content. So if you like this, please have a look on there and keep up to date with the webinars that we have got available. And also we're trying to put all of the webinars onto our YouTube channel as well. So we're trying to promote our YouTube channel currently, so please have a look at our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Chauvin Arnoux UK. And if you have a look at our YouTube channel on there, please subscribe to that and you'll get to see the new webinars as they come on as well. So thank you very much for attending tonight. Obviously, we've been answering your questions as we've gone through the session tonight, but if there is any more questions that you've got now, obviously please type them in and we'll address those as we go. But remember to download the presentation handouts. Obviously go to the go-to toolbar in the handouts section and you can download the PDF version of this presentation. You will get a certificate sent out to say you've attended. That's usually sent out after the final showing. So just wait probably a week after this and you should, within that week, you should get a certificate sent out. Just keep an eye, make sure it doesn't go into your junk folder or anything like that, but you should get that email automatically sent out to you. As I mentioned before, our webinars are available on demand on our website, www.cauk.tv/webinars, or on our YouTube channel as well. If you'd like some more information on the product, again, you can have a look at our website, www.cauk.tv, and also have a look at our main chauvinarnoux.co.uk website as well. So thank you very much for listening. If you've got any questions now, obviously you can type them into the chat box and we'll answer them. And I hope to see you on another webinar again shortly. Thanks for listening.